James Harden has finally been traded to the LA Clippers in a massive move, and now we have to figure out what this is going to look like in LA once James Harden gets there, and why the Clippers wanted to make the move for Harden in the first place. Now, obviously, this is an offensive-based move for the Clippers. Why do they want another perimeter guy? They've already got Paul George. They've already got Kawhi Leonard. Well, those guys are very good offensive players, but they don't exactly do a great job of getting their teammates involved. They're very isolation-heavy scorers. They're great at it, but they needed a guard that is a little bit more of a creator and a playmaker. This is an example of what I'm talking about from a few nights ago against Utah. Now, Kawhi's actually going to score on this. He's going to just kind of barrel his way in, miss it, and then tip the ball back in. But I want you to remember these kinds of plays when we go and look at some Harden plays later and compare where you think the basketball might go in this situation if this is actually James Harden, if this is a better creator. Again, Kawhi scores on this. He barrels into a couple of guys. It's a decent bucket late in the game when they really need one. But think about what this would look like if this was James Harden as a creator with Kawhi and Paul George on the perimeter, attacking off of closeouts. Where do you think the basketball might go at this point if this is James Harden? And that maybe this is a better shot opportunity down here rather than whatever Kawhi puts up. And yes, he scores it, but just think about the playmaking aspect of that as we go through this video. And this is another example. I'm not going to say a ton of bad things about Russell Westbrook in this video, but this is another example of just kind of things get a little bit clunky offensively for the Clippers. He's going to kind of barrel his way in around Colin Sexton. They're a physical team. They're just trying to get themselves to the rim, but they need a little bit more finesse than this, a little bit more playmaking than this. This is all just very clunky. It's a turnover. Yeah, maybe there's a foul. You can say that, this is maybe a poor play by Russ, but this is just kind of an example of what a lot of Clippers offensive possessions look like, especially if they're not making jump shots. Just very clunky. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the Clippers being a very isolation-heavy team. Russ is going to come set this screen, and the Blazers are going to switch this, which means that Paul George is now going to have Anthony Simons on him, which is a good thing for the Clippers. Like, this is good offense. You want to be able to do this, but you don't want to exclusively live in this kind of realm, especially when you don't have an elite playmaker as the guy that has forced the switch. It just kind of makes the role players feel like they don't really matter that much. They're not that involved in the game. And yeah, Paul George misses it. It's a decent shot, but this is option number one for the Clippers in a lot of scenarios in terms of what they want to do offensively. They want this switch. They want their bigger wings to go and attack the smaller guards, and it's a good idea, but it'd be nice to have another option on nights where these kinds of shots aren't going down. So let's compare those clips to some of the playmaking and the shot creation from Harden last year. This is going to be Embiid with the ball. Harden's going to come up on this dribble handoff. Melton's going to kind of screen down this way for Embiid, but realistically, he's going to pop back out. And Harden's going to make two reads here. This is something we don't see a ton from the Clippers. They don't do a lot of plays where they involve two reads. That's basically, we're going to get a switch and isolate, or we're going to set a ball screen and we're going to go try and score. But Harden's able to read both guys. At this point, it's unclear where the basketball should go. Jimmy follows down, miscommunication here for Miami, and he finds D'Anthony Melton right here on the wing for an open three. This is the kind of offense that you don't see a ton from the Clippers because they don't have the personnel. They don't have a guard like this that they feel like they can trust to make this kind of read and make it quickly. And it'd be pretty beneficial if Harden was the guy doing this, because then this could be Kawhi Leonard. This could be Paul George rather than D'Anthony Melton. Just an example of some of that playmaking and creation that Harden can still bring to your team even at this point in his career. This is another really good example as well. Embiid's kind of already set this brush screen. He's kind of trailing behind the play here, and Harden's going to get in the lane and just kind of wait and figure it out. Wait for someone to make a misstep. And as soon as they do, this has been a staple of Harden throughout his career. The second that a player makes a wrong step, Al Horford right there, takes too far of a step into the lane right here, look, the ball's already on its way to PJ Tucker as Al Horford is making that step. It's something that Harden has done an incredible job of his entire career. And that still existed at times last year in Philadelphia, creating a wide open look for a good corner three-point shooter in PJ Tucker. And again, this is all based off of, I can read this guy and go to Embiid, or as soon as you make that wrong step, that second read is there, I'm going to kick it out, and a great open look for a good shooter. Now, you might be thinking at this point that Joel Embiid was on the floor for both of those clips. Well, Harden also is capable of making like George Niang, Montrezl Harrell, I think that's McDaniels or Tyrese Maxey or somebody, and Matisse Thybulle. He's still capable of making these kinds of lineups work. Niang's going to set a little brush screen here. Harrell's also going to come over and set a screen, but he's really going to slip it, and then Harden's going to loop this up over the top. Again, this is the kind of creation that you don't typically see a lot of in LA because their wings are just not as good playmakers as Harden is. Again, there's a little slip, Montrezl Harrell scores. So it's not just because Embiid's out there. It's not just because the MVP of the league is out there. He's able to make these kinds of plays and make plays for role players. And if the Clippers really wanted to, aka if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George would agree to it, they can do some really interesting small screens here for Harden. This is DeAnthony Melton, who's like 6'5", maybe, like he's basically a 2 guard. And this could be Kawhi. This could be, golly, Tuck, can we ever draw letters? That could be Kawhi. That could be PG. And these would be really dangerous pick and roll combinations. I don't know if those guys are going to agree to do that, but look at how easy that is for Harden. Just find that little pocket pass. Imagine if this is Paul George or Kawhi setting this screen, and then the other one of them is over there in this corner. This side of the floor is absolutely terrifying to deal with, or even if it's one of them in the opposite corner. Some of these small pick and rolls I think could be really interesting with Harden as well in LA. Now, at this point, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, okay, but what about in the playoffs, Tuck? He's not a very good playoff performer, and you would be correct. However, we have to give Harden some credit for last year's postseason. This is no Embiid. This is game 1 against Boston, and he's able to basically carry them offensively for the entire game. Now, typically, back in the day, this would be a James Harden blow-by to the rim and either a layup or free throws or both. He gets his switch. This is Grant Williams. He's going to try and get to his right hand, and a couple of years ago, this is a layup or a foul. But this isn't a couple of years ago anymore, so Harden's still going to be able to get, halfway to his spot, create a little bit, and he's a good mid-range player. Doesn't shoot a ton of them, but he's a good mid-range player. Again, just an example of, okay, maybe there's no PG, maybe there's no Kawhi, maybe there's 9 minutes left in the fourth of a playoff game. Let's see what Harden can create for us. And he did a good job against Boston in game 1 and game 2 last year, again, without Embiid. This is another switch. This is Grant Williams. We're going to get to the rim, float game, easy bucket. Now, I definitely don't want to be the guy that's like defending James Harden as a postseason performer, but this level of creation is something that just doesn't exist on the Clippers roster. And there's a reason that they wanted to go out and get themselves James Harden. This is going to be Paul Reed setting a little screen. We're going to snake, wait for it. As soon as that misstep from Al Horford is there, he's going to find Paul Reed, easy bucket. And every now and then, there's a little sneak peek of like the old James Harden. This is Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's a good defender, but Harden recognizes there's nobody down here. We've got Horford in the corner, but there's nobody protecting the rim. And every now and then, there's a little bit of quickness. There's a little bit of first step from Harden. And in this game, there was some of that. Jaylen Brown's a good defender. One cross, gets right to the rim. A little explosion at the rim to finish. This isn't going to happen all the time, but in the postseason last year, for a couple of games, we have to give Harden some credit. He pulled this out of pretty much nowhere. Now, of course, if you're the Clippers, you're also going to have to deal with the defensive issues with James Harden. And the way that I've always described Harden to other people defensively is that he plays defense like he's just played pickup for 3 hours and is completely exhausted and is only playing on one end of the floor. This, by the way, is in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Your season is on the line right here, and James Harden might as well be on the bench when he's playing defense. He's just standing there. I mean, yeah, it's Marcus Smart. It's not the greatest shooter in the league by any means, but like, could we maybe pay just a little bit of attention here? If you can't tell, by the way, this is James Harden. Could we just pay a little bit more attention, with our entire season on the line? That would be pretty cool. Nope, look at, he has no idea where his man is, no idea what's happening. Marcus Smart, easy 3. This is going to be a problem for the Clippers. It's a problem for every team that has James Harden. Same thing here. This is Harden over there. He's got Franz Wagner defensively here. We should probably know that's not going to go well, but we'll see how the possession looks. Okay, we're paying a little bit of attention off ball. Here comes the baseline drive. Sick effort, dude. This is great defensive effort. This is what you want, right? And I understand that most stars in the NBA don't put a lot of effort into defense, but Harden takes it to a new level. Just step in front of the guy. Don't give them an easy corner pass right to a great three-point shooter. What is this? Are we playing soccer? Why are we just sticking our foot out trying to kick the ball out of bounds? This is the kind of stuff that will drive you absolutely insane if you're a team like the Clippers that is very invested in trying to win a title at some point, is giving up multiple firsts for a guy that is just chilling out there most of the time. Here's another one also against Orlando. This is going to be Harden down here. We got Jalen Suggs. Again, Harden has no idea where his man. Jalen Suggs could be on the other side of the floor by now, and Harden would have absolutely no idea. It doesn't even help on the ball at all. It doesn't do anything. Just a little backdoor cut. Easy bucket for Suggs. Now, as much fun as it would be, I probably don't need to continue going through James Harden defensive clips. You guys probably understand, but let's bring it back full circle to what I showed you at the beginning of the video with late game creation from the Clippers and how it's going to look different with Harden. Yes, you might want to prioritize Kawhi or Paul George in different scenarios, but we showed this earlier, right? So Kawhi is going to get a decent matchup against Lauri Markkanen. He's going to force his way to the rim, and he's eventually going to score on this. But how much different would this look if the guy with the ball in his hands right now was James Harden? And this guy, who actually is Paul George, this is Paul George. Maybe he's, a little bit better set up on the wing. And then this guy is Kawhi. That, I think, is going to be the biggest benefit to the Clippers, because Kawhi and PG are good when they have an isolation, they're good when they have a good matchup, but they're even better, just like most stars, when they can attack when an advantage has already been created. This could be Kawhi down here attacking off of a closeout with space already created. So like, yeah, Paul George is very capable of scoring in this scenario with a smaller guard against him, but he has to do all of the work himself. He has to create all the space, he has to get the switch, and he has to make the shot. But with Harden out there are scenarios in which this could be Paul George over here, and this actually is Kawhi Leonard over here, and Harden can create and give some of those kickouts that we saw earlier and allow them to attack off the dribble, allow them to hit catch and shoot threes, and it's just going to open up so many more things. And no disrespect to Russell Westbrook, who's right here. He's actually been like good for the Clippers and a good ad for them, but he's just not on the same level as a playmaker, as a creator, as Harden is. And there's going to be less of this where we're just kind of fumbling out of bounds and throwing the ball away. And there's going to be more legit creation where Harden gets in the lane. He's going to see Paul George right here. Like if this is James Harden, it's probably an open three for Paul George. And again, that's nothing against Russ. Like this isn't a terrible possession. He gets to the rim decently. Like if Batum kind of gets a little bit more towards the baseline, he finishes that probably, or if it's a different player, if it's an actual big down there. But everybody for the Clippers, in terms of the guys they count on for offense, it's a little redundant. It's like bigger guys barreling their way to the rim in isolation. They don't have a true creator, a playmaker. They haven't had one the entirety of the time that Paul George and Kawhi have been there. They've had Russ. They've had, they added Bones Highland. They've had a couple of different guys there. They've never had a creator like James Harden. And with a team that has as much on the line as the Clippers do, obviously everything is dependent on health, and they just gave up a ton more of their depth. But having Harden there is going to allow them to rest some of those guys, maybe even more than you would typically. And most importantly, they have a focal point offensive player that creates for others. Yes, he's going to have the ball a lot. Yes, Paul George and Kawhi are good individual offensive players, but they're not creators. And James Harden is. And that's why they had to make the move for him.